Hey, Ruma, what's going on?
What's going on?
How are you?
Doing well.
Welcome to Let's Talk About It.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So, who are you?
So I'm Ruma. I'm a real estate attorney here in New Jersey.
Right. That's
Yeah.
nice. So, everybody talks about real estate attorneys. Do we need them? Do we not? Especially in northern New Jersey, it's frowned upon that we should use a real estate attorney. So, can you expand a little bit? Why is it important to have a real estate attorney in your life when it comes to transaction?
Who's frowning upon it?
You know them people. It'd be like one of those them South Jersey people. They'd be like, you don't need no northern. You don't need no lawyer. You could do this yourself. But
So
it's important to have one.
it is. And as a real estate attorney, I think you should always have one. Okay.
Right.
And there's 3 reasons for it. One, oftentimes this is the biggest financial decision someone is making in their lives.
I agree.
So you need to have an advocate who's going to have your back through the entire transaction. The minute you sign the contract, all the way to closing.
Right.
It's important. 2, you're going to be signing a contract, right?
Correct.
And you sign this contract because the realtor tells you have to do it in order to engage in this whole process of buying a home or
Right.
selling a home, right? But the way the contract is laid out, only attorneys are actually trained to understand it.
Right.
You might read it and say, okay, I think that makes sense. But there's the real world where the transaction's happening.
Right.
And then there's the court of law, which is going to interpret the contract completely differently.
You mean we have to follow the law, right?
Right.
Oh,
You
that
should
part,
be
right.
following the law. And that's where your attorney is imperative, right?
Okay.
They're going to be able to explain the concepts to you in a way so that you can understand it. I've had so many clients who read a sentence and I ask them, what do you think that means? And what they think what it means is definitely not what it actually means when it comes to the legal terms.
I can attest to that.
And then finally, third, I would say attorneys are really savvy negotiators.
Okay.
And I say that because real estate attorneys like myself, this is all we do day and night.
Right.
We probably on a yearly basis do more transactions than anyone else involved in the actual transaction, from the lenders to the realtors, And because of that, we've got a pulse on the market. So we really know realistically what happens when there's inspection issues. How do we negotiate that?
Right.
We know what the buyers can expect to get, and we know what the seller should be expecting to give. And we've seen all the pitfalls, and we figured out the solutions, right?
Right.
So you should have someone,
You should have someone representing you at least, right?
Have an expert represent you.
Well, no, sometimes, some people are like, man, these real estate attorneys, they kill deals. I'm like, you're buying something this expensive. Why would an attorney go out their way to kill a deal? Like,
Right.
give me a better reason. Well, they didn't get back to me. I'm like, well, maybe you have the wrong attorney.
Yes.
Right? I can make a case for that, right? So
Right.
I like you, I feel like, especially when you're spending that type of money, especially the areas that we service, it's very important to have an attorney, right? And it's just makes matters easier, right?
It does.
Yeah. So going back to asking a second question, throwing me off a little bit, but I'll be all right. Excuse me. What are some of the things that sellers should consider when they're putting their house on the market and they want to talk to an attorney? When that question comes up, sometimes I'm asking it the wrong way. Excuse me. When sellers are listing a home, right? Sometimes they just list it, or sometimes they like to use an attorney. Are you there at times when a seller's about to put the home on the market, you give counsel to that?
Sure, definitely. We have, what's called for sale by owner.
Right.
So people will contact my office and ask, is there anything that I should be doing before I list the property?
Right.
Sometimes I get the call once they've already listed the property, they've already found the buyer, they need the contract to be drafted up. If I do a consult before they've listed it, I kind of let them know, you need to disclose any major issues in the home.
Right.
Make sure if you did any renovations, any additions to your home, you got the proper permitting done. Make sure that's all on record with the township. Do you have an oil tank on the property? Do you know of an oil tank on the property? If you know about it, get your documentation together.
Right.
And then I also ask about, what kind of title issues could there be, right? Have you been paying your mortgage? Have you been paying your taxes? Do you know of any judgments against you?
Right.
Right.
And that's important, right? Because you think just because you put your house on the market, everything's supposed to run smooth. But unfortunately,
Yeah.
things do happen, right?
Exactly. And you want to make sure you're also pricing it at a point to take care of all your liabilities,
Right.
if there are any on the home.
I always feel like lawyers, again, are important, right? Because sometimes some will just list their home and like, I don't need a lawyer. I'm like, you should seek counsel because if something does go wrong, you are responsible without knowing, because you didn't know what to do at the time of the process.
I've had clients will discover a second mortgage on their property that they have no idea about. And sometimes it might not even belong to them. And then what do you do, right?
That is true. Well, especially in some cases, usually when you get down payment assistance, the second mortgage is a silent second on that mortgage. So you think you paid off everything, but you have not paid off everything, because you still have a balance with them.
Right. And if they don't fully understand the process,
right,
then that's where the attorney comes in to explain, this is what happened when you got your mortgage. This is how it got recorded against your property.
Right. How about this? So usually today, given the price of homes, it's usually 2 or more buying a house, right? So what happens when clients come into you, they're like, should it be tenants of common, joint tenancy entirely? How do you answer that question if they're not in a relationship but buying the house together?
Okay, so there's a couple of ways. Okay. I've had couples, who have been together for decades,
right,
just haven't done the formal thing to legalize it,
right,
which is totally on trend right now, right?
Okay.
And for those people, I always say, how do you want to treat the relationship? Because you kind of have to ask them. And I go through, what does it mean for tenants in common?
Right.
What does it mean to be joint tenants with the right of survivorship?
Right.
So we explain each thing. Tenants in common, right? You decide what percentages belongs to each person. If one person dies, their portion of that property is going to pass through whatever their estate planning is.
Okay.
Right. Joint tenants with right of survivorship. If one person dies, the whole property passes to the living person.
Correct.
Right? And then when you're married, it's just joint tenancy.
Right. I asked that question just because sometimes, they're completing the application that we provide to them and they're like, how should I answer that? I'm like, well, technically, I shouldn't be giving you that answer. You should seek counsel for that, because how you deed this property can have repercussions on what's going on, right? So
totally.
I'm always careful about that.
I've also had some couples who are like, oh, we're intending to get married in the future.
Right.
We're splitting the down payment. We need to figure out who's going to pay for the HOA. They're like, what if the HVAC stops working? How do we figure out, if we're not married yet, how we spend those costs? And for that, for some clients, I put together what's called a cohabitation agreement, and we lay it all out.
Interesting. Cohabitation agreement.
Yeah.
I like that. It's cool. This is why they should be using you, right?
I know.
So given the fact that, again, we're in a volatile market, things are going back and forth, we're winning and losing deals. How do you protect that escrow money? Some are very nervous about that.
Yeah.
And can you,
well,
talk about
as a buyer's attorney, I always, when I do my consults, I tell the buyer that is really my main, biggest protection I'm going to give you in this transaction is making sure that deposit is secure. And if anything does go wrong, that you're able to get it back.
Right.
Right. But then I also tell them, we got to look at the contingencies, right? And we have to understand, are there any limits on there? Did you waive anything? I'm always like, you got to fall back on the contract in order to be able to argue out and get your deposit back. The one caveat I always give, you can't go under contract and then wake up in 2 weeks and just change your mind because you don't like the house anymore, or you suddenly saw something better on Zillow.
Right.
So really helping the client understand what they're signing, what that means, and then having them 100% trust me, right? To have open, honest communication with me.
That's key, trust, because that, again, it's a lot of money moving back and forth, right? And sometimes people get involved with, they're hearing voices.
Oh, yeah. They're Googling. They've got friends who purchased. They've got family who just purchased.
She's not telling you the truth. She's lying. You don't need to put that much down. I mean, first thing is first. One, you take that with a grain of salt, that information. Two, you can't compare yourself to what
anyone else's experience,
right? Because they could have bought a house 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13 years ago.
Totally.
I remember when I bought my house, I just had to put $1,000 down and buy it. I'm not dating my age though, but just...
and like I said before, right? We have a pulse on the market, right? So if I see a contract come in and I see a significant down payment or a significant deposit amount, I do ask, was that to sweeten the deal to show that you're really, you're strong financially in order to secure this? In that case, then you have to move forward with it, right? If that's the offer that you gave, we do have to stick to it. But then let me sit down and explain the reality of the situation in case anything goes wrong.
Which is very important again, right?
Yeah.
So that said, when it comes to getting involved with the process, I know lawyers are very important. Again, I do think you guys are very important. Can you share a story where someone needed you that much and you took them to the closing table because of your expertise?
Yeah, so this happens a lot, I would say, in a dual agent situation, right?
Okay.
Where there's an agent involved, like a real estate agent's involved,
Right.
but they represent both sides, right? They list the house and then they also manage to find the buyer.
Right.
And so sometimes they're not totally unbiased, right? They're not just representing one side. So this is really where the attorneys come in and like we navigate the transaction.
Okay.
So I had this client, I mean, he was a riot. Like he
was
beats
a
to
riot.
his own drum.
Right. Okay.
You know, he had put in, and we went under contract with him on 3 different houses. Okay. And each one kept getting canceled for some reason or another. So I argued my way out for him on 2 other contracts to get his deposit back. Those were safe. We were good.
Okay.
Finally, we find this third property. It's like his dream home. I've been the only consistent like person interacting with him.
Okay.
Because he was working with like so many other agents, and I was like, you need to pick one, and that one is going to manage expectations for the rest, you know. But he was
Right.
beating to his own drum again.
Of course, he knows better, right?
Right, he knows better. But he stuck to me as the attorney. So like
Okay.
sometimes
We're
he
cool
knows
with that.
better.
Okay.
Sometimes he knows better.
That's a good one.
So the one thing, once they found their dream home,
Right.
the issue was on the mortgage side, actually. He was going to have a hard time getting approved because he had a judgment against him. Now, he was happy to pay this judgment off, and he had paid the judgment. It was like credit card debt
Right.
that he had to get rid of. But I guess he took long in paying it, went to court. Obviously, the credit card company won because they're like, this is his expenses. He's never paid them, slapped a judgment against him. So that was kind of causing an issue with the mortgage approval and the
Right.
mortgage commitment. So in attorney review, I negotiated a longer timeline altogether in order to get, you know, the mortgage commitment because I knew we were going to be up against this.
Right.
So in that case, I thought ahead. I was proactive about it. I was like, all right, we're going to give ourselves 60 days to close instead of like 35 to 40 days, which
makes sense,
which
right?
is typical, right?
Right.
So I was like, all right, let's have a 60-day span. You know, you're going to have like initially 30 days to get your mortgage commitment. If you don't get it by 38 days, we have an automatic right to ask for 15 more days.
So the commitment meaning the mortgage getting approved, right? Because
Yeah.
some people don't know what a commitment is. I
Right.
just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Right, exactly. So before the commitment could even be issued,
Correct.
the judgment had to be cleared.
Right.
So he ended up sending me, you know, all the judgment paperwork, the proof of payment as well.
Right.
Reached out to the attorney that was handling, you know, for the credit card company side and was like, hey, we just need the payoff. The funds are already in, and the funds had to be deposited to the court.
Okay.
And then from the court, it goes to the sheriff, and then from the sheriff, it goes into this law firm's trust account as payment
Okay.
for the debt. So that whole thing was like taking forever, and I knew it would because I have a background in working in the court
Right.
system, right? So I was like, all right, this timeline should be good for us. Got all of that rolling. The judgment got paid off. The funds got to the trust account of the law firm, and we got the satisfaction of debt.
Nice. That's why you went with 60 days.
You know?
Yeah, that's good. It's
Yeah.
good.
And then we got the commitment. We moved through inspection issues, and we got to the closing table.
Boom. Knocked it out of the park. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. So who is Ruma, right? Like look, so I met you a couple of years back, right? When I first met you, I knew you had it. You really came across like you had everything together and you were leading in the right direction. I respect that, right? But
Fake it till you make it.
yeah, right. And then I was like, okay, you know, I got my little lawyer friends and I've been transparent with you on that. And I was like, all right, do I need another lawyer to be hanging around with? All right, it's all right. You know, Joanne, you know, Paula, you know, Shayna, and we all meet each other. I'm like, all right, let me give her the little hook. Let me just put it in there. So I met you and I got to know you a little bit better. So for those who don't know who you are, can you expand on who you are, Ruma?
Sure. Let's see. I am of South Asian descent, of course.
Okay.
My parents are immigrants. And then I was born and raised here, though.
Okay.
I went to college in New York.
Okay.
I also
Wait,
went
gotta
to.
be careful. Went to New York University.
I did. Yes.
Right? Like, come on. I went to college. You went to New York University.
Okay, fine. So yes,
Okay.
I did my undergrad at NYU. After that, I went and worked as a paralegal at a law firm in DC, one of the top law firms there. I got to see my first trial as
Nice.
a paralegal as well. That was in New York City, actually, in state court,
Okay.
which was awesome to see. And we won. So that was my
Nice.
first taste of like the real legal world.
Okay.
After that, I decided, okay, I think I want to do this law thing. So I went back to New York City for law school, went to Cardozo Law School,
Okay.
and then I started my career there. And I actually started in litigation. And
Wow.
and so I was in court.
Lots of reading in court.
Yeah.
Lots of reading in court.
That's why I always tell my clients there's the court of law,
Right.
and then there's what you read and what you think it means, right?
Wow.
So as a young attorney, I was in court representing like commercial landlords. It was all commercial litigation, breach of contract issues. So my clients, were landlords in commercial spaces in New York City, restaurant owners, hotel owners, things of that nature. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years. And then, when you get to a point in your career, you're like, okay, I've made it. And now I'm like at this great firm and I've got a great boss and they're like telling me they're going to get me ready to be a partner at the law firm.
Right.
And I was like, but I don't think I want that.
Wow.
Okay. I was like, I don't think I want that. I saw the stress that these partners have in building their own books of business, in managing client expectations, the long hours we work, not to mention New York City litigation. Like I was doing sometimes 60 to 80 hours in a week. If I was preparing for a trial, like I didn't see family for 3 months at a time.
That's that could be challenging.
Yeah, it was challenging. You have like no social life, no friends.
No.
Your family's like, where are you? You're completely out of shape.
Right.
It's just like not a healthy way.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted more control of my life too.
That's good. Like I said, when I saw you and I knew you had your blink together, right? I was like, all right, you there's a lot you're doing, and I have to give you kudos to that. And especially a minority woman, in the world that we live in today, right? I love seeing that. Not to get political, so when you see someone like Nikki Haley, governor of South Carolina, pushing to become president, and Kamala Harris, vice president of the United States of America, of course.
Of course. You see people like you, and you're like, I can do it too.
I can do it too, right? And as a girl dad, right?
I love that.
I'm seeing that happen, and I'm like, oh my God, I really want my child to see this because there's room for everyone to grow. And so when you're trailblazing this, it's kind of cool that you can tell someone like, I see this, I had this, I want more.
Right.
And I'm going to do it no matter what because I know I have the skill to manage that happen, right? So want to definitely give you your flowers for that, right?
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And when I started my practice, that was one of the big things too, right? Real estate, I think, has come really far as like integration of minorities and women and all that. But I mean, I still come up against it as an attorney. As an attorney, I still come up against challenges, and also,
it's gonna happen, right?
Also just, being on the younger end too, right? I'm not taken so seriously. People are like, who is she? She's like the new kid on the block. Until I make my arguments.
You see that dosage, right? Like, yo, no, you're wrong. Like, no, you're not today.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So that's cool.
Yeah, so it's cool. And now I have like an all-female team.
Okay.
We do awesome. It's like group team of 4.
All female team.
I'm
just joking. I'm joking. Cool. Again, that's what's up. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, outside of your profession, what do you like to eat or activity-wise, like travel, eat? What are some of the things you like to do?
Yeah, so I would say I really got into solo traveling in like the last year.
Solo traveling?
Yeah.
You just gave me a new defining word, solo traveling.
So it's like,
Okay.
you decide.
She's a lawyer, by the way. Solo traveling.
So I've done, and I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone.
Okay.
So I did really active trips. So I did a like sailing trip out in Spain, off the Spanish islands.
Okay.
Learned how to sail. It was awesome.
Nice.
And then most recently, I was like in Argentina. I went hiking for the first time. I went kayaking for the first time. And like the hike was like an 8-hour hike, like all day. And people on the trip, because we're all solo travelers, so we're all like, new friends to each other.
Okay.
They were like, This is what you picked to do for your first hike ever? You didn't want to just go on like a nice like 2-miler. You decided to do the 8-hour full day
Wow, that is draining.
hike in Patagonia.
Like your mind has to, the mindset for that within itself is one thing right now to actually do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, we love to eat.
Right. Who doesn't love to eat?
We love to eat.
Yeah,
Big
so,
foodie.
There you go. So your passport does have a lot of stamps.
It does. It does. It does. I'm trying to go to Japan this year. So putting that out into the universe.
Cool. That's cool. So what do you like to eat?
Oh man, I have no dietary restrictions.
Boom.
So lately I feel like I think it's on this Japan kick, but I'm like super into omakase.
Omakase. Oh, don't let Paula find out.
I know, Paula always picks the best places too.
She does. She's a foodie too, right?
Yeah.
She really dives into it. So
I mean, Jersey's getting way better with the food. I mean,
I would agree. Excuse me. I would agree with you on that. Jersey is definitely getting better.
Yeah.
I used to have to go across the Hudson to get
go
good
to
food.
the city.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'd be like,
I mean,
no.
that's where I was eating for 10 years, and then you come back to Jersey and you're like,
yeah, it's gotten better because
way better.
At times I used to speak, when I moved out here, people like, I would take their opinion on food. I'm like, I can never ask you again because now it's better because, again, I guess because Jersey's doing a good job, bringing in small businesses in here to, empower their food and everything else that they got going on.
Yep.
So Ruma, I want to thank you for coming on Let's Talk About It. Again, thank you for your time. And
thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah. Can't wait for the next one.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right.